We've all heard the story of the boy who lived, the orphan waiting for a saviour. But what if the cupboard under the stairs didn't teach him fear? What if it taught him the tactical logic of power? In the cold and the dark, Harry Potter learned that the world isn't divided into good and evil. It's divided into those who rule and those who are crushed by the rules. While the Dursleys saw a victim, Harry saw a testing ground. He watched Vernon use shouting to dominate and Dudley use mass to intimidate, realizing their normalcy was just a mask for their weakness. At the zoo, the glass didn't vanish by accident. It was a command. Harry didn't talk to the serpent, he gave it a mission. Execute Dudley Dursley. He didn't see a miracle that day, he saw a weapon of high-velocity results. When the Dursleys stopped punishing him out of pure, unadulterated terror, Harry learned his first dark lesson. Fear isn't a side effect of power. Fear is the tool that gets results. By the time his Hogwarts letter arrived, Harry wasn't a student looking for a home. He was a predator looking for a bigger hunting ground. Because of this, Harry, Hogwarts wasn't a school, it was an armory. The arrival at Hogwarts is not a moment of wonder or a fairy tale escape for Harry Potter. It is a tactical entry into a new theatre of operations. While the other first years stare at the enchanting ceiling with wide-eyed, fragile innocence, Harry's gaze remains level and cold. He ignores the floating candles and the ghost stories, instead scanning the high table, methodically identifying the true sources of power among the faculty. When his name is finally called, the Great Hall falls into a hushed, expectant silence. But Harry does not falter. He walks to the stool with a measured, predatory grace that feels entirely out of place for an 11-year-old boy. The sorting hat barely grazes his hair before it recoils in visible shock. It senses a mind that has already abandoned the naivety of childhood for a singular, chilling ambition. There is no debate about bravery, no mention of the potential for Hufflepuff loyalty. The hat recognizes a ruler in the making and screams Slytherin before the fabric even settles against his brow. It is in the damp, shadow-heavy corridors of the dungeons that Harry encounters his first real opportunity for leverage, Severus Snape. During their first potions lesson, Snape attempts his usual routine of public intimidation. But the moment their eyes lock, the atmosphere in the classroom shifts. Snape remarks, with a voice full of suppressed venom and ancient grief, that Harry has his mother's eyes. Harry does not feel the sting of loss or the warmth of a connection. Instead, he feels the sudden, sharp thrill of an apex predator discovering a weakness. He watches the flicker of unresolved longing and pain in the professor's expression, and realizes in an instant that Snape's past is a weapon he can wield. From that day forward, Harry begins to meticulously manipulate Snape. He uses his resemblance to Lily Evans not to find a mentor or a father figure, but to ensure he has a protector who is too haunted by the ghost of his mother to ever truly oppose him. This manipulation bears its first significant fruit during the winter term when Snape summons Harry to his private office. On the desk, draped like liquid moonlight, lies a shimmering, silvery fabric, the invisibility cloak. Snape explains with a sneer of cold, familiar resentment that he had to go behind Dumbledore's back to ensure the boy received this heirloom. He tells Harry that while the cloak belonged to his horrible father, James Potter, it was an asset wasted on a man of such shallow character. Snape insists that such a powerful, subtle tool belongs in the hands of a true Evans, a child who carries Lily's blood and potential, rather than the Potter name. Harry accepts the gift with a modest, grateful nod, playing the part of the dutiful student perfectly. Internally, however, he celebrates. He has successfully turned the most guarded man in the castle into his first primary supplier of forbidden resources. With the cloak, Harry's surveillance of Hogwarts becomes absolute. He spends his nights drifting through the castle like a ghost, mapping out the secrets the teachers think are hidden. He soon notices the glaring inconsistencies in the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, Quirrell. He watches from the shadows as Quirrell's nervous stutter vanishes the moment the man thinks he is alone, and he identifies the sickly dark aura that clings to the back of the man's turban. Harry does not report his findings to Dumbledore or the staff. Instead, he tracks Quirrell with the patience of a hunter, watching as the professor moves through the forbidden third-floor corridor. He realizes that Quirrell is not just a common thief. He is a host for something far more ancient and dangerous. By the end of the year, Harry stands in the final subterranean chamber, facing Quirrell and the grotesque remnant of a man who murdered his parents. His initial instinct is a visceral, burning desire to kill Voldemort, to settle the blood debt of Godric's Hollow. But the Dark Lord, speaking from the back of Quirrell's skull, is a master of a different kind of logic. He tells Harry that his parents were weak, and that their deaths were a necessary, brutal catalyst that produced the very strength and clarity Harry now feels in his veins. He does not ask for Harry's forgiveness, he offers him knowledge. Voldemort proposes a trade. In exchange for Harry's assistance in reviving his physical form, he will guide Harry, teaching him the deep forbidden magics that Dumbledore would forever keep hidden. Harry looks at the face in the mirror, and then at the shadow of the man who effectively made him. He realizes that a dead mother is merely a memory, but a living Dark Lord is a tutor who can give him the world. In the cold damp of the underground chamber, a pact is forged. Harry Potter will not just be a student of Hogwarts, he is now the apprentice to the very shadow that tried to consume him. Year 2 begins with the calculated exchange that shifts the power balance of the school. Harry receives the diary of Tom Riddle from a terrified Draco Malfoy, who acts as a courier for his father. Rather than seeing a threat, Harry recognizes a weapon that can accelerate his pact with Voldemort. He chooses his pawn with cold precision, planting the diary on Ginny Weasley and waiting for the dark ink to take hold. As the Chamber of Secrets opens and fear paralyzes the student body, the staff begins to search for answers. Snape pulls Harry aside, questioning him directly about the chaos spreading through the halls. Harry lies without hesitation, maintaining his mask of the grieving orphan. Snape, blinded by his lingering devotion to Lily, never suspects that her son is the one orchestrating the terror. The year reaches its grim conclusion in the depths of the castle. Ginny's life force is systematically drained, fueling the transition of a memory into flesh. Voldemort is successfully resurrected, standing once more in a physical form. Harry does not shrink from the sight. Instead, he stands beside the Dark Lord as his true training begins, prepared to master the darkness he has helped unleash. Year 3 marks a brutal escalation in Harry's journey, as the boundaries between a student and a Dark Lord begin to vanish entirely. Before the school year even starts, Harry begins his true training with Voldemort, moving beyond theory into the visceral, blood-soaked reality of the dark arts. To test his apprentice's resolve and the depth of his internal malice, Voldemort brings in a nameless muggle for Harry to practice the Cruciatus curse on. Harry levels his wand, his mind filled with the cold logic of power he has cultivated since his time at Privet Drive. But the spell fails to produce anything more than a flicker of discomfort. Voldemort is visibly unimpressed, his voice a freezing rasp, as he suggests that perhaps Harry is not fit to be his successor, that perhaps he is still just a weak boy. The rejection stings more than any physical blow, leaving Harry with a desperate, obsessive need to prove he has the darkness inside him. When the term begins, the halls of Hogwarts are heavy with a suffocating, unnatural grief. The school remains in mourning over the death of Ginny Weasley, and the impact is devastating. Ron is so broken by his sister's death that he takes a full year off from school. Dumbledore, sensing the shadows growing longer and more malignant within his school, asks Snape if he believes Harry had any involvement in the tragedy. Snape, still acting as Harry's unwitting shield and blinded by his eternal oath to Lily Evans, denies it flatly, protecting Harry from the headmaster's scrutiny. This misplaced trust allows Snape to begin longer private sessions with Harry, ostensibly to teach him advanced, Newt-level potions and defensive theory. Harry, however, uses this proximity to deepen his psychological hold on the professor, constantly asking calculated questions about his mother to keep Snape's emotional wounds raw and his loyalty permanently secured through shared grief. The escape of Sirius Black from Azkaban provides the final catalyst for Harry's descent into true darkness. When Harry asks about the fugitive, Snape tells him the truth, that Sirius was the one who betrayed Lily, and is the direct reason she is currently dead. At the end of the year, Harry finally comes face to face with his godfather in the Shrieking Shack. Sirius makes a heartfelt, desperate plea, begging Harry to look past the lies and see the light of his parents' true legacy. For a fleeting moment, as Harry looks into the eyes of his father's best friend, it seems the hero might return. But the memory of Voldemort's disappointment during the summer flashes in his mind. He realizes that to be a Dark Lord, you must not just cast the spell. You must mean the pain. With a look of cold, calculated malice that shatters Sirius's heart before the magic even hits, Harry Potter tortures and kills him, finally mastering the darkness that has eluded him, and proving to the shadow of Voldemort that he is indeed the next in line. Year 4 begins with Harry transitioning from a solitary predator into a calculated leader of men, as he meticulously begins selecting the first members of his inner circle. He vets the sons and daughters of the old guard with clinical precision, enlisting Draco Malfoy, Crabbe and Goyle, alongside influential Slytherin girls like Pansy Parkinson and Daphne Greengrass. He does not offer them friendship, he offers them a place in the new world order he is building. However, the most significant tactical shift occurs when Ron Weasley finally returns to the school. Ron is no longer the boisterous boy Harry once knew. He is a hollowed-out shell, consumed by a directionless anger and a grief that he takes out on anyone within reach. Harry recognizes the immense value of a pureblood ally from a light family, and begins a slow, systematic grooming process. He does not comfort Ron, instead he acts as a dark mirror to Ron's rage, convincing the boy that his anger is the only honest emotion he has left. Harry isolates Ron from the remnants of his family, positioning himself as the only person who truly understands the magnitude of Ron's loss. This is also the year that mask finally slips entirely for Severus Snape. In the suffocating quiet of the dungeons, Snape discovers the scorched ink of the dark mark on Harry's arm, and confronts him with a mixture of horror and betrayal. Harry remains entirely unfazed, meeting the professor's gaze with a coldness that borders on the inhumane. He reminds Snape that they now carry the same stain, and when Snape attempts to claim he abandoned that path for Lily, Harry strikes at the professor's only remaining nerve. He maintains that everything he is doing, every dark ritual and every pact made, is for his mother's memory, a desperate mission to gain the power necessary to dismantle her true killer, Voldemort. Snape, trapped by his eternal, obsessive devotion to Lily Evans, finds himself unable to strike down the boy who carries her eyes. He agrees to the deception, beginning a long campaign of lies to Dumbledore that secures Harry's safety and allows the boy's darkness to flourish unchecked within the castle walls. Year 5 sees Harry's shadow regime move from the dark corners of the school into a position of absolute clandestine authority. Before the term even properly begins, Harry completes the radicalization of Ron Weasley in a series of private, high-stake meetings. He finds Ron in a state of simmering volcanic rage, still fueled by the unresolved trauma of Ginny's death. Harry leans into this pain with surgical precision, telling Ron that he has taken the Dark Mark not out of loyalty to the Dark Lord, but as a necessary ugly tool to dismantle Voldemort's empire from the inside. He convinces Ron that Dumbledore's mercy is what actually killed his sister, and that the only way to achieve true justice is to join Harry's undercover war. Ron, blinded by a desperate need for a target for his hate, agrees to become Harry's right hand, unaware that he is being molded into a weapon of the very darkness he thinks he is fighting. The official reveal to the rest of the Silver Circle takes place not in the comfort of a common room, but in a cold, forgotten classroom deep in the bowels of the dungeons. Harry stands before the assembled Slytherins, his presence commanding and terrifyingly still. He rolls up his sleeve, exposing the scorched, pulsing ink of the Dark Mark to the dim torchlight. The room falls into a deathly suffocating silence as the gravity of the choice hits the students. Before the silence can turn to hesitation, Ron Weasley steps forward from the shadows. In a moment of profound betrayal to his lineage, the Gryffindor bares his own arm and accepts the mark from Harry's hand, signalling to the Slytherins that the old lines of blood and house are dead. Following Ron's lead, Draco and the others fall into line, their magic and lives now bound inextricably to Harry's will. With his army marked, Harry begins rigorously nightly training sessions in the Room of Requirement, pushing his followers to master the violent, soul-scarring curses Voldemort has shared with him. However, Harry soon senses the amateurish pulse of defensive magic elsewhere in the castle, and tasks Ron with hunting it down. When Ron returns, he reveals he has discovered that the Resistance is the Dumbledore's army, and it is being led by Hermione Granger. The inevitable collision in the Room of Requirement is not a schoolyard duel, it is a demonstration of absolute superior force. Harry moves through the frantic defenders with a predatory grace that borders on the supernatural, his movements silent and lethal. The battle reaches a horrific climax when Harry levels his wand at Neville, and casts Sectum Sempra without a second's thought. The room falls into a shocked, airless silence as Neville collapses, blood blooming across the floor from gashes that appear like invisible blades. Before the Silver Circle can finish the massacre, Snape bursts into the room, his face a mask of calculated cold fury. He ignores the carnage and begins the rhythmic, melodic counterchant required to knit Neville's flesh back together. Once the boy is stable, Snape looms over Harry, his voice a low, dangerous hiss. He does not offer praise for the victory. Instead, he tells Harry that these childish games and schoolyard grudges are a distraction from the power he is supposed to be wielding. He warns Harry that if he truly intends to challenge the Dark Lord, he must stop playing at being a bully and start being a king. Year 6 brings the ultimate test of Harry's resolve and his mastery over the people who once believed they were his mentors. The year begins with a chilling summons to the presence of Voldemort, who tasks Harry with a mission designed to break him or make him: the assassination of Albus Dumbledore. While Voldemort views this as a trial for a young lieutenant, Harry views it as the final hurdle to his own ascension. When Harry discusses the mission with Snape in the freezing quiet of the potions lab, the professor is uncharacteristically hesitant, arguing with a desperate edge in his voice that Dumbledore is the strongest wizard alive and should be kept as a potential ally against the Dark Lord. Harry, however, is completely blinded by an icy ambition. He sees Dumbledore not as a man, but as a relic of a failed era of mercy that must be cleared away to prove he is ready to usurp Voldemort's throne. Throughout the winter, Harry begins a subtle, systematic campaign to weaken the headmaster's influence and health. He watches with clinical interest as Dumbledore's hand withers from the curse of the Gaunt Ring, realizing that the great Albus Dumbledore is just as susceptible to the rot of dark magic as any other man. Harry does not feel pity for the dying wizard. He feels a growing sense of impatience. He spends his nights mapping the castle's defences, ensuring that when the moment comes, there'll be no escape and no interference from the light side of the war. The plan reaches its horrific culmination on the astronomy tower, where Harry finds a weakened, exhausted and isolated Dumbledore. The air is biting and the sky is bruised purple as the two wizards stand at the edge of the world. Just as he attempted with Draco Malfoy in the original timeline, Dumbledore tries to appeal to the flickering ember of Harry's humanity, offering to hide him and protect him from the Dark Lord's wrath. Harry shows no such mercy. He moves with the speed that mocks the old man's age, casting Expelliarmus and watching with a cold satisfaction as the Elder Wand clatters across the cold stone floor. When Snape finally appears, bursting onto the tower with his wand drawn, Dumbledore makes one final whispered plea for his life, a plea directed at the man who had been his spy for decades. Snape looks at the dying, desperate headmaster, and then at the boy with Lily's eyes, who stands over him like a judge. In that moment, Snape recognizes that the child he sought to protect has become a monster far more efficient than the one they were fighting. He declares that the boy is the only way forward before stepping aside, abdicating his role as Dumbledore's protector. With a hand that does not tremble, Harry levels his wand and casts the killing curse. The green light illuminates the tower in a sickly flash, and Dumbledore falls from the ramparts with a look of absolute shattered shock. In the sudden ringing silence that follows, a visibly shaking Snape asks if they have truly done the right thing. Harry's response is devoid of even a trace of regret. He maintains that it was done for his mother's justice, and that it was the only path to the power they need. Harry moves to the edge of the tower and retrieves the Elder Wand from where it lay. As his fingers wrap around the ancient wood, he feels a surge of magic so potent it threatens to stop his heart. He is no longer just a student or an apprentice. He is a master of the Hallows. He raises the legendary artifact into the night sky, letting out a massive blinding pillar of white light, a signal to the Death Eaters, the Ministry, and to the world that the old order is dead, and a new, far more dangerous power has officially risen to take its place. In Year 7, with Dumbledore dead and Snape officially installed as the headmaster of a fractured Hogwarts, the true nature of the war shifts from shadows into open, bloody conflict. In the privacy of the headmaster's office, Snape reveals the final desperate secrets Dumbledore left behind, showing Harry and Ron the fragmented memories of the Horcruxes the late headmaster suspected Voldemort of creating. Snape explains that the Dark Lord, driven by a vanity as deep as his cruelty, likely chose ancient house heirlooms to house his soul, specifically Hufflepuff's cup and the diadem of Ravenclaw. Harry listens with a detached clinical focus, already calculating the most efficient way to dismantle his mentor. He divides their forces with the authority of a general. tasking Ron with finding the diadem within the castle walls while he handles the cup himself. They both realise that the moment they move against these anchors, Voldemort will sense the violation of his soul, turning their hunt into a race against a god. Harry's assault on Gringotts' Wizarding Bank is not a stealth mission or a subtle infiltration. It is a declaration of war. He enters the marble lobby with the Elder Wand gripped in a steady hand, carving a terrifying and uncompromising path through the security. He duels auras and goblins with a cold, terrifying ease, casting killing curses that no shield can withstand against the raw, ancient power of the Elder Wand. There is no hesitation in his movements as he slays the Guardian Dragon with a vicious, nameless spell and blasts open the reinforced vault door using a torrent of cursed fiend fire. He retrieves Hufflepuff's cup from the burning gold and destroys it instantly within the black, hungry flames, savouring the distant psychic scream of Voldemort's agony. Back at Hogwarts, the Silver Circle reconvenes in the darkness of the Room of Requirement. Snape provides the locket he recovered from the office of Dolores Umbridge, while Ron presents the diadem. Ron, his face hardened by the violence he has committed in Harry's name, coldly admits that he had to torture a blonde Ravenclaw student, Luna Lovegood, for information, before eventually convincing the ghost of Helena Ravenclaw to reveal the artifact's location. Harry takes the diadem and, without a word of thanks or a flicker of remorse, incinerates it with a fresh burst of fiend fire. It is then that Snape reveals the final grim truth that Dumbledore had hidden. 2 Horcruxes remain, the Snake Nagini and Harry Potter himself. Harry's immediate instinctive reaction is to raise the Elder Wand at the Professor, the green light already sparking at its tip. But Snape, his voice weary and devoid of fear, reveals that he has spent every waking hour since Dumbledore's death developing a ritual and a complex potion designed to extract the soul fragment without killing the host. As they begin the grueling preparations, Voldemort's voice suddenly echoes throughout the castle and the surrounding grounds. A cold, high-pitched rasp that challenges Harry to face him and claims there can only be one true Dark Lord in this world. Snape insists that Harry cannot engage in the final duel until the ritual of extraction is complete, as the soul fragment makes him vulnerable to Voldemort's direct mental control. With a look of absolute command, Harry orders Ron to take their army and buy them the necessary time, no matter the cost in lives. Outside, the Battle of Hogwarts erupts with a strange and desperate alliance. The Slytherins of the Silver Circle fight for Harry's ascension, while Hermione, Neville and McGonagall stand by Ron's side to defend the castle's gates against the incoming tide of Voldemort's forces. Deep within the stone heart of the school, Snape performs the exhausting and agonizing ritual, visibly draining his own life force to purge the dark soul fragment from Harry's body. The ritual is a grueling success, leaving Snape in a collapsed, dangerously weakened state on the floor. But Harry offers no word of gratitude or comfort. He simply turns his back on his protector and hurries toward the courtyard, his mind solely focused on the man who made him what he is today. In the courtyard, the localized fighting reaches a sudden chilling halt as Harry appears, moving through the settling dust like a ghost claiming its domain. Voldemort stands across the jagged piles of rubble, laughing with a high-pitched, rasping sound at the boy he believes is a mere pretender. A child playing at being a king who dares to try and usurp his throne. The heavy, suffocating tension finally snaps when Ron Weasley, his face twisted into a mask of years of suppressed hate and calculated rage, screams for his fallen sister and unleashes a violent, uncontrollable torrent of fiend fire that engulfs Nagini in a roar of black flames. Voldemort lunges forward to strike Ron down for the loss of his final anchor, but Harry intercepts the curse with a casual, almost bored flick of the Elder Wand. The duel that follows is an epic and brutal display of mastery that transcends standard wizardry. As both wizards cast the killing curse simultaneously, the 2 jets of blinding green light meet in the center of the courtyard, creating a colossal explosion of magic that ripples through the very foundations of the castle. But Voldemort is no match for the true master of the Elder Wand. The spell is slowly forced back toward the Dark Lord, pushing against his waning strength until it finally strikes him dead, leaving nothing but a hollowed-out shell on the stone. As the dust settles and the silence returns, Harry stands alone in the center of the courtyard, eyes closed, feeling the surge of absolute intoxicating power vibrating through his veins. From the sidelines, a weakened and trembling Snape gives Harry a tired, knowing smile and a single nod. The long, dark mission they shared is finally complete. But the silence is short-lived and deceptive. Harry turns, expecting the adoration of his subjects, only to see Hermione, the surviving professors, and every remaining student of Hogwarts standing together in a wall of resistance. Every one of their wands trained directly on his chest. He turns to Ron, intending to order his Silver Circle to rally and crush this final pathetic rebellion. But he stops when he sees Ron's wand is also leveled at his heart. Harry stares at his friend, genuinely confused by this defiance. But Ron's voice is cold and devoid of his usual heat, as he asks if Harry really believed he didn't know the truth about who actually killed Ginny. Ron admits that the last few years of serving as Harry's right hand have been a living nightmare, but it was all a necessary means to an end, a long game played to ensure Harry survived long enough for Voldemort to fall, just so Ron could ensure Harry finally gets what is coming to him. As 100 stunning spells rush towards him in a synchronized wave of light, Harry raises the Elder Wand and blocks them all with a single contemptuous gesture of his wrist. He spins, releasing a terrifying concussive pulse of dark energy that knocks every single wand out of every hand in the courtyard. With a massive surge of magic that bends the very air, he forces the entire crowd to their knees in a display of absolute dominance. Harry announces to the terrified kneeling survivors that a new, uncompromising era has begun. A new Dark Lord has risen to take the place of the old, and they will either learn to obey, or they will die in the dirt. He calls the frail Severus Snape to his side, and commands the professor to bring 7 people forward to be sacrificed in a ritual that will grant Harry true eternal immortality. He tells Snape to start the blood work with the traitor Ron Weasley, and promises that Hermione and McGonagall will be next in line. Snape drags a defiant, struggling Ron to the front of the circle, while the courtyard watches in a stunned, breathless silence of pure horror. Harry looks down at Ron, mocking his grief one last time by calling Ginny a stupid, easily manipulated girl who died for nothing. He tells Ron that he can die in peace, knowing that Harry will personally destroy the rest of the Weasley family and every soul who dares to betray his new order. Harry raises the Elder Wand high, his face illuminated by the sickly green glow of his own impending godhood, and prepares to deliver the strike that will sever his last ties to humanity. A sudden, brilliant flash of green light envelops the courtyard, blinding the kneeling survivors. But the light does not erupt from Harry's wand. Harry's body, once moved by a predatory grace, crumples to the stone like a puppet with its strings cut, revealing Severus Snape standing directly behind him, with his own wand drawn and a steady, soul-crushing resolve. The Elder Wand clatters against the rubble, a useless relic of a boy who believed he could outrun his own nature. Snape stares down at the fallen body, searching the cooling gaze of the boy who had his mother's eyes, only to find they are now vacant, glassy, and devoid of the light he spent half his life trying to preserve. The silence that follows is more deafening than the war, a heavy, suffocating vacuum where a hero should have been. Snape slowly throws his wand to the ground, abandoning the magic that had become his only companion, and falls to his knees amidst the ruins of his final failure. He buries his face in his hands, not in victory, but in a grief so profound it transcends the death of kings. In the end, Snape saved the world, but to do it, he had to kill the only part of Lily Evans that was left in it. So the war is over, but there are no cheers echoing through the shattered remains of Hogwarts. The survivors stand in the wreckage, not as victors, but as ghosts of the children they used to be. The legend of Harry Potter, the boy who lived, the orphan, the hero, is buried under the weight of the monster he became. History will remember him not as the boy who lived, but as the boy who chose the dark and was consumed by it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the corrupted legacy of Harry Potter and the tragic fall of the Silver Circle, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're constantly exploring the what-ifs and dark alternate histories of the worlds you love, and your support helps us keep the shadows growing. Let us know in the comments below, do you think Snape truly redeemed himself? Or was his final act just another desperate attempt to save a memory? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.